This episode is sponsored by Cindy and Al Soln. Thank you, Cindy and Al. And this topic is so beautiful. It's about creative expression, the value of expressing ourselves. In particular, when we are experiencing difficult emotions like sadness or stress or fear. So, join us. You are going to learn a lot, I promise you. Living in harmony is possible if you know your emotions and how to handle them. I am Dr. Carmen Roman, and I will share with you the current psychology by myself or by interviewing experts who will inspire you. Learn how to live a life of fullness and how to recover your emotional harmony. Welcome to Emotions in Harmony. Welcome back, amigos in harmony. Today, I have an interview for you with Tori Press. Tori has been expressing herself in Instagram. Actually, you may want to go and see her website even before listening this podcast so you can appreciate even more this interview. Her website is revelatory.com. And her Instagram account is all about expressing herself through art. I just love her work. So you can come back and listen to this interview because it's so beautiful to listen from her. So Tori is going to share with us about her experience of sharing her process while going to therapy, expressing herself in public through the social media, and how also her transition, how she did to transfer from a 9 to 5 job to a job that she loves to do right now. So also she talks about what is the experience for her sharing other people's stories. And she has these drops of wisdom that I enjoy during the interview. It is a short, very sweet, meaningful interview. I hope you enjoyed as much as I did. And once more, thank you to Cindy and Al for sponsoring this episode. Remember, we are in this new phase of Emotions in Harmony. In order for us to support this podcast, in order for us to keep going, publishing, we are doing some funding. So whether you want to help us, just a couple dollars, doesn't matter, or you want to sponsor an episode and you can choose the topic. You cannot choose the content and who I am going to invite, but you can definitely choose the topic and I will work on that. And sponsoring an episode is $500. And trust me, it will be $500 that you are invested in humanity because this podcast stays there in all of these platforms forever. Thank you. Thank you for being with us. And listening and sharing is the best investment. The best thing you can do for us, just to listen and to share this episode. So please do. Enjoy Tori. Enjoy this conversation. And let us know to both of us what you think. How we can improve, how we can bring better content for you. You can write to carmen@emotionsinharmony.org. You can text me, you can WhatsApp me, you can, send me a message through Facebook, whatever. Just be patient that I will get to them eventually. Yes, I promise. Okay, here is this episode. Enjoy it. Hello, amigos in harmony. We have today a super amazing woman guest. We have Tori Press. And I came in contact with her work because one of our staff members called the attention to it. And I absolutely fell in love with your work, Tori. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. So a little bit of Tori, and she will tell you a little more. Tori has been, is an Instagram artist for the past 3-4 years, more or less, 3 years.
About 3 years.
About 3 years. She was a graphic designer before, and then one day she just decided to start sharing her passion for drawing. And if you go to her Instagram, please go. You can find stories she shares every Thursday. Yeah.
Yeah.
From people who share stories with you, Tori, and then you make them into cartoon.
Mhm.
Yeah. Wow. Tell us a little more. Tell us about everything that you want to tell us about yourself.
Yeah. Well, I first started started drawing, making pictures for myself. I had quit my job as a graphic designer. It wasn't really serving me anymore. And, initially I started making drawings to think about things that were happening in my own life and process them. And as my Instagram audience grew, I kind of realized that I wasn't able to speak to there's this whole wide swath of human experience out there, right? Everybody goes through something different. And I was able to speak through and process my own experiences through art, which we'll talk more about. But I found that there's a lot of stories out there that I wanted to share that aren't a part of my human experience, but are still valuable and that people can learn from. So I started asking people to share some of their stories with me. I started actually in the summer. I said, let's call the summer of 2019 the summer of self-love. And I got a lot of stories from people, many people from different walks of life who have been through all kinds of different things in their lives. But there was such a commonality of experience that people shared with me. And one of the common threads was everybody looking for some way to find love and peace with who they are as they are, not trying to change themselves or improve, which I think is a lot of what the cultural messaging is, especially if you spend a lot of time on Instagram. There's a lot of really aspirational content out there. So I just feel honored that folks were sharing their stories with me over the summer about coming to self-love. And then this fall, I opened to hearing stories about shared experience in therapy. So we tell those stories on Thursdays.
Wow. So tell me about how has been this process between drawing and therapy for you. I am a creative expressive art therapist, and we do a lot of drawing and music and poems and painting and everything, and dancing too, and translating into the context of therapy. So tell me how this has been for you.
It was actually art that sort of led me to therapy, and then therapy that's made its way into my art and led me back to art in so many ways. And I'm very fortunate. I have a therapist who really encourages, she works with creative people, and she encourages creative expression as a means of self-healing, which I believe with my whole heart, it truly is.
Mm-hmm.
I started making drawings. They started out really simple. I wasn't telling long stories. I was doing very simple stuff, one panel. But art opens a window to the soul, if you will. And I started learning things about myself and kind of studying myself in order. You've got to be thinking about what is it that I want to express to make art. And the more I did, the more I began realizing that I had some issues that I wasn't really working through in my life, and that I felt like it's time for me to go in and ask for some help. So in that way, art inspired me to start going to therapy. And then I would go to my therapy sessions and have experiences there and learn things that I wanted to draw about. So they really kind of feed off of each other in that way. And I think that I've gotten more out of my therapy sessions because I can process them and think about the topics that we talk about and things that therapy, you hear things that maybe you don't want to hear. Your therapist brings something up that you're not ready to deal with yet, or you're not ready to address that issue. But if you can address it through art, it's just a more roundabout way. I think it's less scary. It feels less like facing it head on and more like working through it as a friend.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I also believe that, because I work with a lot of immigrants, I believe that art helps with language barriers.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And probably you have followers probably from different languages. Yeah.
And I get really excited because some of them ask to translate my work. And I love for it to be able to be translated into a language that I don't speak.
Mm-hmm. So can you tell to someone who do their actual work and they want to transition into start to doing what they love, what do you will say to them? I guess you were at some point transitioning to your job to what you love right now.
I've done it a couple times at different times in my life with what I'm doing now. And when I first transitioned to the graphic design job that I did, I would say that it's really important to listen to yourself and to feel good about the work that you do. I think it makes such a difference to be doing work that you love and that speaks to your soul. I think that work that you don't love, because I've had many jobs where I was just kind of showing up for the paycheck, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. And it's in fact what many of us, most of us have to do every day. So I would never, ever knock that or say it's a bad thing. But I think it's really important to make time in your life to the extent that you can for the work that fills your soul and that brings you the feelings that feeds that part of you that's looking to express itself. Looking to come out. So I think everybody's situation is so different, but I think there's no shame in working a 9 to 5 to have money and to pay your bills, and then to do the thing that you love in the off time, if that's what you have to do for some time. And for a long time, I worked that way myself, working during the day for the job that I did to pay my bills, and then doing freelance things for my own enjoyment and the work that I felt really passionate about on the side. It requires sacrifice, and I didn't get out and do a lot of fun things. I was saying no to social invitations a lot during that time. But I think that until you can fill that gap financially, it's a good thing to do, and it's good to make that time for yourself.
Yeah, I guess I am going to go a little deeper, and I'm going to just throw a question. What did you do to defend yourself, like against this person that I need to go and work, I need to go and do something?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I still feel that way because I'm selling art prints. It's not super lucrative, right? So it's hard. And I think there's also, especially in any kind of a creative job, it's really hard to put your work out there and put it out for critique. So it's like I have the voice from inside my head saying, you should be doing something different. This isn't really, posting drawings on Instagram. What is that? Is that a job? Is that a career? What are you doing? But I believe that I'm doing something good, and I believe that I'm doing something that gives value to people. And I think that, I have to kind of answer it back that way and say, well, no, this is providing value.
Yeah. Wow. So not only you were working with yourself, but you were brave to post it in Instagram.
Yeah, well, I started out only showing my friends, and I had to get a lot of encouragement, from people who said, oh, this is actually really nice, and I think that other people would like to see it. Yeah, I didn't feel encouraged to share until I heard that from a lot of people.
Okay. So that was a journey for that too.
That's hard. I think it's really difficult to self-evaluate in that way. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. So what do you will say to some followers that are sensitive to talk about therapy or emotional issues or something? Social media is harsh.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is. And, I've received feedback from people before who have wondered about me sharing. I've gotten feedback from people in my life saying, oh, you're sharing this about your mental health issues. You're sharing that you have depression. Aren't you worried aren't people going to think that something's wrong with you? And I say, well, there's not anything wrong with me, or not anything that there is to be ashamed of. It's just my brain works a little bit differently from other people. My brain is more anxious. It trends toward depression. I struggle with some situations more than other people do. So do a lot of folks. I understand that mental health is stigmatized, and that a lot of people might not want to they might feel called out if somebody tags them, for example, in a mental health post, or they might feel triggered. And I think that we want to be sensitive to populations. I haven't had to do this yet, but I would put a trigger warning on a post if necessary, if it talked about a triggering issue for people. But at the same time, I think that being more open about it and sharing about the experience, what I've seen is that sharing about my experiences in therapy and struggling with mental health have helped other people feel seen. I think that it helps to normalize it. And so if you're feeling sensitive or upset, I would just say, take a look around and see that you're not alone, that it's not a big deal. It's not something to feel a lot of shame about. It's something that many people share, even if not everybody talks about it.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that, because for me, I have 20-something years doing therapy, and for me, listening to stories is like every day, probably to the point that it's no news anymore, neither bad or good. Yeah, it's just part of life.
Yeah.
So when we started the podcast 2.5 years ago, it was a little bit of a difficulty because some people was like, well, Carmen, but you talk about very difficult topics. I mean, we were talking about how to prevent sexual abuse or how to talk about abuse to your child or something like that. And people were like, why you don't talk about something nicer?
Why don't you talk about something happy?
Yeah, something happy.
Feel good.
And you see social media and you say, oh my God, yeah, it's different. Yeah. How we are going to address it if we don't talk about it?
These things are real, they happen. And it's like, you don't want to think about it. It's nicer to go through life pretending that these things don't happen. But, I've seen firsthand what can happen if you go through life pretending that you don't have, not addressing issues that are there. And I don't think that that's healthy. I think that you're sending your own self a message. If you're not addressing something that's going on, you're sending yourself a message that it's not worth addressing or that, you can't. I think that hiding from your issues makes them bigger, makes them scarier, makes them more powerful. Hiding and pretending something. I think that when we don't talk about it, it just it's like the monster in the room. And if you're in a dark room and it's a dark monster, you can't tell how big it is or how small, how threatening or not. Yeah. But if you can turn the light on, and the way we do that is by letting other people in on what's going on and talking about it, you're shining a light on and all of a sudden it's just no longer as big and scary as it felt like when you were dealing with it all by yourself.
Yeah, especially when you talk to people that care about you.
Right, very much
people who knows how to hold that, especially that. I think it's just a treasure, actually. Yeah.
I agree. I think you're right.
Yeah. Trust me, I didn't realize how difficult it was to talk about those feelings until I start posting. I start posting and like, what are you doing, Carmen? Like, oh,
I'm glad to hear that from a therapist. That makes me feel like really good. I'm not a therapist, but it's nice to know that you feel that way too.
Yeah. Actually, it actually made me think like, oh my God, what I'm doing.
It's that way a lot.
Yeah, if I listen to that every single day. But I also listen to stories that people because they went through, because they were able to talk about it, they grow. And I also get to listen to the beautiful part of the stories. So not everything is bad.
And that's one thing that's been really cool. That one of the best things about opening up my account and saying, I want to not just tell my stories, but I want to tell your stories too, is that almost, I don't want to say without fail, but so many emails, a majority of messages that I get end with someone saying, even if you never draw this, even if it never makes its way out into the world, I feel better for having written about what I did. And so I think that there's a value in that. And I mean, that processing your experience through writing, through art, through some kind of creative means to get it out of your head and out into I think that's one of the most beautiful, magical things that human beings do and can do.
Yeah. That's right. Even in the sharing with you the story is a healing process. You're right.
It helps. Yeah.
I did for the dissertation, for my PhD dissertation, I interviewed undocumented adults. And I was recording the interview for 20 minutes. And just doing the interview, they say, thank you. Or like, wow, somebody listened to me to this difficult story of coming to this country. And it was just so beautiful. It was just right there. I was not doing therapy because I couldn't say anything. I only needed to ask questions. And that was also a beautiful gift for me. Like, wow, people, we just need to talk.
The magic of just, and I think that's why, like you put something out that's in a difficult topic that you don't want to, people don't like to talk about. It's about sexual abuse or suicide. And what it does is creates a space in the world for this topic to exist. And for anybody who wants to know, it's a space to let them know you're not only are you not alone, but someone out there is holding space for you and for your experience. And it's okay.
It's okay.
Just that is so powerful.
Yes. Thank you for all the work that you do. Really, thank you. And I want to ask you if you want to say something else, if there is something that we didn't address that you think we should.
No, I don't think so. I really enjoyed speaking with you. Thank you.
Yeah, me too. Thank you. And we are going to close here. You want to say something to close the interview for our listeners?
Yeah, thank you so much for tuning in. And I would love to hear any stories that you have to share about your journey to self-love. If you are like me and have struggled with self-acceptance over the years, I'd love to hear about that. I'd also love to hear any stories that you're wanting to share about your experiences in therapy. And follow me at Revelatory on Instagram. We're doing it every week. Thank you.
Yeah, we will put the link in the show notes. Guys, if you are driving or you are gardening or whatever, you don't need to take a paper and pencil right now, or you don't need to copy a link.
If you're driving.
No, please don't. Don't worry. It will be in the show notes. You just scroll down. Show notes are there. Go to Instagram and type Revelatory with V as in Victor, and you will find Tori there. And you actually will find it easier because it immediately pops out this beautiful art. Yeah. And also, since we are here, if you want to share stories and talking in a podcast, we are launching in the next month a podcast about stories. We want people to tell their stories too. And English or Spanish, we are going to launch in Spanish, but of course we are collecting English because the English people want to talk too. So we are collecting stories for the podcast, the new podcast. Thank you, Tori, for being with us, and thank you for your wonderful, beautiful vulnerability.
Thank you.
That is a gift. And I will follow you. I hope you continue to draw and do this beautiful work.
Thank you. It was an honor to speak with you today, Carmen. Thank you.
Thank you. We have reached the end of another episode of the podcast Emotions in Harmony. See you the next week. Visit www.emotionsinharmony.org, where you can subscribe, find the notes, and be in direct contact with me. Thanks for listening.